People will try to link to my family members and find a way to lock me into the prison and get medication and get the best of me, and then try to relate my mind and thoughts under their authority of a black person trying to get under, not under my skin but under my soul, of a bitter antichrist satanic rebellion against the Bible. At a certain time, when the gay guy will talk out the window and say, hey, you just a gay guy, what are you doing in this hallway? He might have a gun, he might have a needle like at the hospital, so you have to be careful. Make sure you use the appropriate way. Like if a guy has a gun and you don't have no gun, he's going to use it. But if people say you ain't about that, you don't want to do that, you want to bring your weapon and say, hey, get out my shit, I demand you. And if he doesn't, you got to make the move of thump. So it's like he says, oh, I'm not gay, I'm not a fag. If you a fag, get out my hallway. So that's why people will say, oh, we wanted to hurt him and harm him with a needle. And I'm not the person to let that happen. It's a real nigga jump house. We could let the prison cell, we could let the dogs out. We could do the all dogs go to heaven. So eventually when I go to church, it could be cons, it could be murderers, it could be people trying to harass me for the rest of my life, putting murky mook under my identity, saying there is no God, there is no love, people trying to return to their murderous positions, people trying to threaten me. Like at the time when I was, after CB was released, before Odette's plane already existed in 2015, but I didn't go in that lockup. They say, oh, he could have just got out, but he couldn't got out because there was chains on the door, there was doors with padded locks with keys that you had to unlock the thing, and it was very dangerous to put someone into somewhere where they say, oh, I could just try to say he had an illness that can't be off of record because it wasn't off of record in a certain date, when it was dangerous for him, when they didn't want him to put up this video 15 years before if I roll back, or 15 years in the future. At a certain time when I could have died, but the Windows computer related to a certain fresh spirit of God in me. Sucre was released after Alcatraz, but I used to watch Alcatraz, Planet 8, 1990. A prison movie will prevent people from getting locked up in psych hospitals and mental hospitals and scientific places before 9/11, and scientific places after 2015, with those same things existing before 2000, before Xbox was released, before any new system didn't exist since 2006. But Google Photos existed after 2015, after there was no system before 2015, after the last one was the Sega shutdown, and then the PSP, Sony, PlayStation 2. So eventually some PlayStations could be released a long time ago, but God already knew in the world could be where things is released, but in the universe things could already have been planned, but it wasn't allowed to be released because God was in control. So at what point did people try to link to my present reality and say it was God? Because it was crucial when I seen the picture of the prison, and I was like, I have to get out here one way or another. But because I wanted to be in a movie, I had to be prison like crazy and get into some gang fights, because there's a certain way like eat race. So I had to get the boys, because if you're there, they'll be like that too, you see. But you don't want to like get a freebie of people saying it doesn't matter, because it was the time frame when it was really critical for me, but they were saying, oh, it's fun, and they were trying to spit on me, so I had to maintain my thing. It was times when there was intense times of Indian terrorists in that hospital, white people, big black guys trying to conspire against me, you see. So I had to pray. And eventually, when I was in there for the day before, the tiem guy was there, and the day before the guy rode in the top chair, it was intense, because the guy even took medication in his body, getting a needle pierced inside of his body, you see. So people would say it's nothing, it happens all the time. But at what point did they want to get the last say and say that, oh, we see, because it could have been dangerous. These guys were very big in the hospital. At a certain time, they could have went against me, but I'm a very gangster nigga. But they could have put me in a room with a murderer with a needle in his hand, with a nail, choking me with spit, and I had to yell for my help. At a certain time, when they try to put the needle in me inside the hospital, I had to plead for my life without whining, because it was dangerous. So what time did the Indian guy try to close the book on the lady, and he closed the door because he was saying it is time, because he wanted to get an insurance off of her. But it's like at the same time, like she'll think it's funny too. You see, so it's like a certain time, like people they'll have murderers as children, and they'll say, and it was Lee. It was so bad to the point I said, Lord, I don't want to be in this shitty condition of people who say they see in secret. It wasn't just like someone saying, oh, this is the Baba Barney. It was boo-boos with men who've been living for years and years trying to get a freebie. I was looking at hospital posters. They shut down the hospital with no manager, no leader of the hospital, no organization, no district. The vacant, the hospital thing was vacant in the front. And they wanted me to leave with my gown on. They made me change my clothes, get naked. People trying to say, oh, we want to see in secret. Nasty, funky people hiding in secret. So that the John Elementary could be with Josiah. But I was one gangster in life. You can only get married one time. You can only get married to the gang one time. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So it was more critical. People think they could just kill people and say it's nothing. And they'll say life is worth nothing. But they'll say he can't go to the church because they don't understand. They'll say that it's God. But they'll say that these people didn't want to have a reality of authority at a certain time. When I love authority, the Bible talks about being free from the law. It talks about the spirit of judgment. It talks about the spirit of heaven. When people say, oh, I want to fight because there can't be nobody existing who can secure him, but you want to secure yourself saying that he had an illness when you didn't exist and want to stalk him after you snitched on him. So at what point did people get offended because God was in control, but it was the greatest. And then I always thought about my woman with my pillow. That's one of my greatest things. As long as I have my pillow, I could put my devices in there. And that's why you got to know how to store information just in case people were in prison, because you can't be writing all those notes unless you know somebody. He'll say, Reese, let me how to put the note in the thing. But it's like, will be a certain way. I'll show him, he'll see the thing. He'll ask me, say what the thing is. Then we'll go to the thing. But you had to be a real nigga. Like, this was a behavioral hospital, but it was with people who were the snakiest, deceiving type of people. So I had to find a way to get out of there, because people would want to make me submit with a needle. At the end of the day, they could be putting warlocks of 10 generations of Goliaths and then just say, oh, I'm going to put a needle and then get him in the system and try to put him in the psych hospital, while they were just sitting behind a computer being safe, while there was principalities, things on the news going on every morning. So it was very bad. New president going to come, and now at the end it was going to be a Denver. So eventually I'm going to go for here. I'm going to go up for here. I'm going to go that much. Down to which whenever it is. I used to want to dream of watching Peace Dragon. That's when the orders in my phone were coming to the house before 3 weeks of eating, and then a visit to the office when they released the 666 paper. And I started releasing my YouTube videos before I got this Lexar, and I got a lawsuit for it because I'm going to transfer the copy and paste lawsuit on the Lexar to the other file, because I think that's how the information might be sending and receiving data through the wireless, through different ports than just the computer, so it's not just like a Wi-Fi. And the information, just in case I did a SOS for help, nothing to do with Superman, but more like under Robin Hood Bridge, Train Your Dragon, sending calls for help, like a radio, not like a Superman, like just in case people were wondering how does the signal work. You could do a physical signal. Signals can be converted to all type of messages, phones, data, because if God is in control, there's no way that an airport can have all the information of a national, because it's just like, flying different planes. Like being in basketball is like flying different planes. Like people could be all the same, but you could be the same plane, but it could be completely different view, completely different organization. Sometimes people will just release cheap plane rides, cheap trains with nothing to do of the structure of something that makes that plane ride unique, that could relate to a certain connection. You might not want to talk to a airline pilot, but it might bother you. That's why I have to stay in the house, because it might scare me, because these people might be trying to see in secret and try to open people's eyes and say, oh, we want people to be under us. But I don't agree, because people will say, oh, I have my kid and he wants to do that. But then they want to preach the gospel off the safety of my life, saying that nobody else exists in the world and they could secure themselves, when I don't agree with their filth and their nastiness, because they'll be married at a certain time when they do that. And then they'll try to blame their children on me.